Now at feralaudio.com/shop. 3 new Feral Audio t-shirts are available for a limited time in over a dozen styles and colors. Men's, women's, tank tops, hoodies, stickers, and more, including an original design Monarch by Julia Hagelin seen on our historic Comic-Con 2016 Hall H panel. Check them out at feralaudio.com/shop.
Hello, this is Jordy White from Hour of Goon on Feral Audio. Please tune in this week as we have a very special guest, Shirley Manson from Garbage. Hour of Goon premieres every Wednesday on Feral Audio.
Hello, America, all the countries and all the ships at sea. It's Jeff Davis from Harmontown, here to interrupt our show to talk about NatureBox.com. It's snacks, but healthy snacks, delicious, healthy snacks. They got all kinds of cool shit. They send you stuff to your house. You order as much as you want. You eat as much as you want. Go to naturebox.com/Harmontown. And because you're a Harmontown fan and don't know what to do with your life, you get 50% off your first order. That's naturebox.com/Harmontown. Snack it up, motherfuckers!
Feral Audio.
There we go. Welcome one and all from Hollywood, California. Meltdown, Comics Nerd Melty Theater. Harmontown is now in session. Don't be alarmed that I'm not wearing a tie tonight. Just things are going to get loose. Speaking of loose, let's bring out Spencer Crittenden. Oh, shit. Solo cups down. Speaking of tight, let's bring out Mr. Dan Harmon, the mayor of Harmontown.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming to my show. Thank you for coming to my show. Thank you, I know you could have done something else tonight, but you came here instead and you paid $10 and that means a lot to me. Oh, me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I really thank you. I'm full of gratitude for you.
Also, I should mention special vocal guest Jello Biafra tonight. That was fantastic.
Not familiar with his style.
You sounded just like him.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I think our guest tonight is he's a writer, and he wrote a movie. I'm not introducing him yet. It sounds like an introduction, but he wrote a movie I was just watching on iTunes. It's the Stanford Prison Experiment. It was so
it's a feel-good film.
I think just talking to him about writing and talking about that movie and all of the thoughts about that is like enough. Like I don't need to babble too much. I don't have anything that wouldn't fit within the context of a conversation with him.
No, I say you and I and Spencer, we catch up briefly. We talk about where we're at.
Do we do business?
Well, we have some business to talk about. We have some important business.
I haven't picked up my gun yet.
Right.
10-day waiting period has turned into 2 months of apparent normalization on my part. Apparently, I'm normalizing.
So someone's going to break into your house, and you're going to like, oh, Jesus Christ, I got to run to Burbank to get to that gun store.
It would be the story of my life. I had Batman security cameras installed all over my house, and then I was part of some weird Los
When he
Angeles...
says Batman security cameras, like they have little bats on it, like it's like the underoos of security cameras.
Right. And then my mailbox was part of some Los Feliz wide Wet Bandits, Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern mailbox raiding where two guys wanted to look at my piles of furniture catalogs really bad. And also, but I could have had them on camera. Whatever. yes, of course someone's going to break in before I get my gun, so I don't get to deliciously shoot them. I can't.
But in a pre-Trump universe, if somebody was just like breaking into your house because they were poor and needed the money, you probably would just say, "Hey, like take what you want." But now you're going to feel like you're under siege. I
think it's more like in a post-Trump universe. I would, if someone's breaking in, I'm going to go, "Are you just poor?" Like, are you just out of food and money? And I'll wait for yes.
You've just told everyone that listens to this show how to break into your house without being shot.
Well, the timbre of your voice is gonna matter. You better be able to fake a very authentic Latino sounding. You're not allowed to be offended by that because I'm saying I won't shoot you if you're Latino. That's the opposite of racism. It's reverse racism. It's fantastic. If you sound white, I will fucking pop a cap in you. And white people, don't act like you don't sound different when you're coming through a window. White people come in your window like this. Can I have a cup of sugar? Anyways.
Black people come through your window.
It's in the way that you use it. They love Eric Clapton, black people. NT? Okay. NT nodded. All right. Where was I?
You were saying that all Latinos are poor and white people are rich.
Let me see. Saying that our brothers of a different color are under threat, and in a post-Trumpocalypse universe, my gun has been purchased for the sanctity of guarding my Danadoo. Not so much from the hoi polloi as from the asserters of a newfound fascist state.
So you have no desire to go scoop up this gun and take it out to the
because
range?
I've been like, well, he's not doing very good at taking over everything. He's having a bad time. He seems to be doing as badly as I would do. He's very grumpy and he's self-destructing, and I don't think the gun will be needed to protect my home, because I think that the ice caps will melt. I think I should go shopping for a canoe paddle before.
What would you have to see on Twitter or hear in your news alerts that made you get right into a car and get to the gun shop? I would have to
see CNN's Brian Stelter would have to say, another great day, Trump Heil.
The leader is good, the leader is all?
Yeah, like I'm keeping my eye on the journalists, the activists, the prominent folks. Like I'm keeping my eye on certain buoys. If I see them go like this, I'm like, okay, the Jaws shark is here. I don't know. I gotta go pick up the gun. What are we talking about? Don't worry, kids. I'm gonna get my gun.
You've just told a couple million people that you're currently unarmed at home right now. And if you ask for sugar, you can go right through the window.
You just fucked that up. I know if you ask for sugar, you're white, and I will fucking kill you.
Oh. Well, okay, you told
not even listening.
You told Latinos that they could ask for sugar and go through the window if they could put on a nice.
Still fucking it up. No, if you're white and you don't want to get shot, go yeah when you're coming in the window. If anything, I'm trying to yes and his fucked up racist point of view. I'm here to
I really
protect.
have gone too far tonight.
I'm not going to be... It's fucked up to, like, what you do. You antagonize and you undercut, you sabotage.
It's fun to fuck with
I try to get up here and I try to speak my mind. I try to share my thoughts with people. And you're like, what about this? What about that? And I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And then I try to explain myself and then you're like, aha. Like, am I your enemy? These kids need wisdom. They need to know what color they're allowed to be if they're coming in my window. The answer is less than white. Less than white.
I mean,
I'll let the audience handle that one.
I think it's more embarrassing the amount of time someone said less than white, and then I went less than white, and then the whole audience went, whoa! My white audience was like, bingo! We are institutionally racist. Yeah, less than white, you know? What are you gonna do? It's how we see the world. What fragility? We were talking about tonight on the ride over here. The fact that the thing that made me buy a gun, the thing that I have in common with the people that we would probably, I'm assuming most of us liberal, would associate with our so-called enemy on the other side of the political spectrum. The thing we have in common, the thing that I have in common, speak for myself, is like fragility. The fact that I experienced things not going my way and then I went and bought fucking hardware that puts holes in people because it was like no matter the Al Gores and dangling Chads and the whatevers and the primaries and all this shit, I had the luxury of going like, meh, systems, meh. And then like something real happened that made me actually think this is going to change my schedule. This is going to change how I have to behave next Tuesday. I'm going to be held accountable to something. And I went and bought a gun. It's called fragility. And it doesn't matter how right you are, how wrong you are, how smart you are, how logical you are. It's like, it's a thing that's associated with privilege. You've been privileged. You're more fragile. You're going to be more reacting to things that are on a smaller scale than somebody who's maybe put up with shit that, you know, that and had to like be desensitized to it and realize that, well, there's a pick your battles thing or whatever you would call it. And it's like, that's what we're learning firsthand. All of that talk, all that white privilege, all that stuff that I would get offended by, and I'd be like, well, wait a minute, hold on a second. It's not logical. See, there's nothing logical about it. It's like a gut reaction. You find out what you're made of, and it turns out to be glass, beautiful, pristine fucking sugar glass. As soon as something goes wrong, that like fucks with your picture of the universe. I bought a gun. I turned into a fucking Sandy Hook truther. I in terms of my behavior, I was just like, I want my gun.
Yeah, we should have. We could have seen some bodies if that really happened, right?
We've waited this long to share with you something special about Spencer.
No, you already like me. It's too late.
I have to say,
you've already signed off on Spencer. He's a Sandy Hook truther.
If there's any person in podcast history that could maybe get you to sign off on that, it would have to be Spencer.
Yeah, Spencer talked long enough, like the 5 minutes. I'd be like, all right, maybe, I guess. Why was that coroner acting so weird? I went down a Sandy Hook hole today because I was listening to a true crime podcast, and then there was like mention of Sandy Hook, and then there was like reference. When Sandy Hook happened, I was probably doing Community, and I was probably also just like the gross, like you don't want to know about it, like most of us. But now it's like interesting. It's like the magma's cooled and the stakes seem so much higher in this different spot, and it's like all these things. Like, so from a true crime perspective, Sandy Hook gets mentioned, and I started like they start mentioning like the thing. I just started the today of all days. I like went through. I was like, what was all that business? Like, why were people thinking it was fake? What was going on? And as I was going through it, I thought it was really interesting to note that like. It wasn't just like it was like you had to be a whack job to think that it was fake. But you also, excuse me, I burped. You also had to be a whack job who was absolutely convinced that Obama was like Hitler, like he was gonna get you. He was gonna, and I would personally speculate that absolutely, given the total lack of empirical evidence that Obama was out to get us, like I'm sorry to play this card, but I have to assume you're a little itty bitty racist if you really thought from the moment that he got inaugurated that you're like, shit's going down. Because if you didn't have that I think it comes down to that. I do also think it came down to something other than emails, why you were choosing with all your logical fucking things, all your speeches that you made about why you're voting this way and that way, and all your very salient points about the status quo and how to shake things up and all these things like, you don't like the vagina, you don't like the black people. Because I think there's other ways to rebel, and I think, but what am I going to do? What am I going to say to some kid who's like, oh, I'm going to stir things up? I don't know. But I just thought it very interesting looking at 3-year-old, like, cooled obsidian, like people freaking out and recognizing the distorted shape of myself. Like, seeing people that were so hysterical, that were so convinced that they were living in the end times politically, that in the very real moment of 24 children being massacred, that they would actually, that politics could interfere that greatly with your fundamental human need for empathy, that you would actually just skirt around it and you would rather just live in an alternate universe. You would, and I don't think every single person that flocked towards those YouTube videos that are all the first thing that comes up when you Google Sandy Hook, I think those clicks aren't all the result of mental illness. I think you have to be pretty mentally ill to like put a lot of arrows and things and freeze frames and do all the things that the people that were presenting the videos, but then there's people that they wanted it to be true. And the rhetoric about the occupier in chief, and he just wants this and he wants that. They were living in this Wizard of Oz where there was a wicked witch, and we just got to get to the Emerald City of the truth, and everyone's got to get what they want, as though they're trying to take away. We just got to throw the bucket of water, and they're just not really acknowledging the fact that what they're doing in the present moment is haranguing the parents of murdered children, It's like we're feeling that way right now. I am feeling that way. I'm feeling the way they're feeling. That doesn't mean that I'm as crazy as them. It doesn't mean that I'm as wrong as them. But it does mean that we have the ability to fucking like just abandon everything that makes us good when we get excited, when we get righteous and stuff. And I was like looking at my reflection in that twisted wreckage, and I have no point to any of you. So I was already feeling depressed, but now you're telling me, plus on top of that, get over myself? What are you telling me? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, I don't know, man. I watched this documentary with this guy Daryl Davis, who's like the guy. Did you guys see that? It was like I can't remember what the title of it is. He's like a guy who he's a black guy that befriended Ku Klux Klan people, like for years and years. He's been like that. I don't have enough time to talk about it. You should watch that documentary. Find it on Netflix or whatever, and sit through it, because he kind of, it's like there's a point like 45 minutes in where you're kind of like, I get it. B.B. King played good guitar, but it feels a little bit at a certain point like for the first half, like your things are being repeated over and over again. Then he goes to Baltimore. And like the shit is just happening, like crazy shit. So there's millennial black activists sitting down at a table with him after you've already watched the polite whimsy of him sitting down with leaders of the KKK and skinheads and all these things, and you take from it what you will. And then he goes to Baltimore, and it gets fucking balloon animal, like crazy. Like it could just, you walk away from the whole thing, I will warn you, a little sad. I mean, because it's like, fuck, we're all fucked. but it also, it's like, it's not like, oh, just watch this documentary about how we're all fucked. It's more like watch this documentary about Daryl Davis that like, it puts so much shit under the microscope. I've talked enough. Talked enough. It's my show. Fuck you, people.
You haven't begun to talk. This is your night.
I'm obviously a little buzzed or something. I don't know.
But damn, if your next breath was going to be bringing our guest.
Yes, I was going to bring out our guest.
Well, can I interject one little thing?
Yeah.
For those of you who have been wondering that whether or not the three of us or this show would ever get back to a D&D game or a Pathfinder role-playing game,
we decided not to.
We decided Dan's race monologues were enough for you people. But today we've actually generated characters. We're not playing tonight, but we have a whole thing coming up. It's going to start. It's going to be a doozy.
There was a little clerical error. The characters we rolled were less than white. We're going to re-roll some stats and make them as much as white.
Oh, boy. I want this episode to be called Less Than White just to see what happens for you, for your career.
I mean, if my ironic, based in reality, because I'm a Generation X foot and mouth asshole racism, is that if we have a crucifixion of me, just do it next to the White House. That's all I ask. Just put racist above my head, and just like I just demand everybody just fucking like spit on my corpse, and I just want anybody that works in Washington to be like, what did he do wrong? Well, he was racist, and I just want that person's lunch to change because they're gonna be like, he was right. Fuck.
I heard his podcast. He got a little tipsy sometimes, but Jesus Christ, I'm an actual. I get out there and really do the hard racist work.
I did like a whistle stop thing, yeah.
I bought a weird hat. I sewed some things on my shoulder of my.
I dressed as R2-D2 to leave a town hall meeting under the auspices that it was early trick or treat. All right, so our next guest is an all-around screenwriter, TV, movies. Like I said, his the most recent thing I was watching. Maybe he's done more than this recently. Let's talk to him and find out. Please welcome our new friend Tim Talbot. I got your name right and everything, right? Like I didn't. I'm a bad interviewer. I don't know if I told you that backstage. I'm a bad interviewer, but
I'm a bad interviewee.
Okay, good.
This will be great.
This is gonna be awesome.
This will go great. So I'm gonna put a pin in like how you got started because I think your first job was South Park, right? Like.
First, yeah, like real kind of professional job. Well, I mean, before that, I actually got hired to write a TV movie for MTV.
Oh, okay.
Hey Tim, I'm sorry, just because for audio here, get right in that microphone. So
Get right in there, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like the. Oh yeah.
You are Spencer does it. Yeah.
Yeah, so like the first real sort of kind of professional for a network job was for South Park, yeah.
Like you, what did you send in the script? Now I said I'd put a pin in it, but now I'm talking about it. So you.
Oh, okay.
You
No, actually, what happened was when I first moved out here, right out of college, I became friends with a lot of people that were people's assistants, and one of them was a woman named Amy Cohen, who was George Clooney's assistant at the time. And George was like one of the guys that sent out that first Spirit of Christmas tape to
Christmas
everyone.
guy, yeah.
And so through her, I met Matt and Trey's assistant. And then just for like a couple of years, I was like in their group. So I was going to all their parties and all that kind of stuff. And so they never read a word of me when they hired me. It was like, oh, that guy's funny, bring him in.
You're clearly confident enough that you didn't insert any fake, like, and then I won a talent contest. Like, you're like,
no, it was just like I hung out with those guys at a party, and that's the way they ran their room.
Everyone's story of like, if you're paying your rent with writing, you're one of the fortunate ones. Then people ask about your origin story. How did you go from being Tony Stark to having this whole thing with the Jarvis and everything? And the answer is never as satisfying as, well, I got blown up by my own shrapnel and I had an awakening of the spirit that was brought to me by a magical person that was less than white in a cave. We never have that story. We are not able to impart to them. How do you cope with that really well? Because you just told the story that was like I turned right on a green light and I slipped on a banana peel.
Well, no. Before that, though, I actually, I wanted to be an editor when I moved out here. I went to film school and editing was the only job that I could stand. Like everything else was just, you can't ever write exactly what you want to write.
Because you went to film school.
Yeah, I did.
So how did you know? Did you do when they teach you editing in film school? Did they teach you that it's going to be like there's a person behind you over your shoulder that is impossible? No, they're just teaching you the craft.
No, they literally the thing that was really kind of cool about the school I went to was that day one it was like very much like a tech school. So here's a camera, go start making shit. Mm-hmm. And then I found that in the process of making shit, it was so frustrating. We couldn't get good actors. We couldn't You know, the cinematography was never what you wanted. And then you finally get to the point where you have to edit your film, and there's a pile of shit you got to make into Shinola.
Right.
And for me, that was like as creative as writing.
Right,
you know?
right.
So I'm like one of those.
So I'm sorry, you became you got into editing after being asked to be a director and a filmmaker, and you said, no, I just prefer the editing part, or
Well, pretty much like when you're in film school, you do everything. You know,
Okay.
And part of my whole thing was that I figured out that if I'm going to be a director, I have to know the limitations of everyone else's job. So you crew on everybody else's movies, and you just kind of come to like what you like. But with editing, for me, it was just everything about the process up until that point was such a disappointment that finally to be locked in a room and just be like, well, now make this into something that you're not ashamed to show to people
Right.
was cool. And then when I moved to California, I moved out here with like $20 in my pocket and one friend from college. And I might as well have stayed on the East Coast because I couldn't get my foot in the door anywhere. And then I figured out that the only thing I could do without being hired to do it was to write a screenplay.
Right.
And you know, I just started writing and got repped off the first screenplay, and luckily I also met a trust fund kid from New Jersey who wanted to be a producer.
Donald Trump?
It was not Trump, but he basically paid for me to learn how to write. So I wrote 3 scripts for this guy before I ever got hired for anything.
That sounds familiar. I mean, I feel like we airbrush our backstories. Like I could get really specific about my path from Milwaukee to Los Angeles. It does involve like little like low rent benefactors who are like there's like it's always very molecular and granular. Anyways, but it's never a satisfying thing to say to a kid who's saying, "How do I get where you are? Tell me." And you can never give them a straight answer.
Well, there is a straight answer to that, and that's just don't leave. I mean, literally, the people, you know, if you literally just keep doing it.
Don't leave where you are.
No, I'm saying if you come to California and you want to be a writer, you come to California and you keep writing, and sooner or later you're going to get in.
Right.
There's no easy path. It's always a catch-22.
Yeah, that's what. I always default to like, well, okay, yeah, you're going to have to like writing so much that you'd be willing to do it for 30 years and then get hit by a bus and die. Because I don't want your blood on my hands at the end of it. And I got to a point where I would have been fine doing that, and then all of a sudden I got lucky. All right, anyways. So we can talk about the early days of South Park later.
Hey, sorry to interrupt you from your Harmontown. It's me, Dan Harmon from Harmontown. And if you're a fan of my work such as Community, Rick and Morty, or Harmontown, then you're going to take me seriously right now as I read this ad. My butt is weird, but your favorite note-finding, mystery-solving podcast is back. Found returns live this week from South by Southwest, just like me. That's why I sound like a Southern gentleman. If you haven't heard, Found takes random things found on the ground and tries to solve the mysteries behind them. Sometimes my dogs leave random things on the ground and I have to solve the mysteries behind them. Maybe you know about my dogs because I talk about them on Harmontown. Sometimes they're love notes and sometimes they're babies found at subway stops. The things in Found, not my dogs. They're not really babies. Not anymore. This week's guest is the head writer of Funny or Die, David Litt, and the hilarious Jenny Yang. Find out what random things were found this week. Just go to listen to the newest episode of Found and subscribe to it wherever you listen to podcasts. I'd suggest iTunes, but whatever. New episodes drop every Wednesday, just like Harmontown does. If you're listening to Harmontown, you could already download the newest episode of Found and subscribe to it wherever you listen to podcasts. Maybe iTunes or Google Play, I think. Maybe Podcatcher. Anyway, it's awesome. I'm Dan Harmon, and you should trust me because you like the stuff that I make, and that's why you come to my podcast.
I kind of want to get to the Stanford prison experiment thing because I just started watching that movie. So I asked you in the green room. Maybe we'll retread and we'll pretend I'm asking you for the first time. How accurate is this movie? Go.
85%. It literally is. It's one of those things where, as I was telling you in the green room, for years they were trying to make this story, and Hollywood, in their wonderful way, always, like, the story wasn't enough for them. They wanted to make it into more and make it into the stakes have to be life and death. It's got to have like huge emotional stakes. An earlier draft HBO was going to do that Leonardo DiCaprio was attached to that was about a guard and a prisoner that were best friends, and there was a girl on the outside and a weird love triangle, and it's like, what the fuck is this? And when I first got approached to work on the project, I was completely I didn't believe it. I didn't take any psych classes in college or anything. I knew nothing about it, and I'm just like, there's nothing you can do to me that's going to make me believe after 3 days that a classroom with fake bars on the door is a prison I can't get out of. And it was only when I dove into sort of the research with Dr. Zimbardo that I realized, holy shit, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
And this is human. This is like a real thing.
Zimbardo's the guy that ran the whole
he's
thing.
the guy that...
He does not come off heroically in the movie,
Not
in
at
my
all.
opinion. But at the same time, it's like you could say the same thing about DiCaprio as Howard Hughes in The Aviator. He does not come off heroically, and yet...
But he does have a lot of urine.
He's he's the genius who thought of this experiment. And my favorite line in the movie, this isn't really a spoiler, I think this gets to the crux of why we all heard the phrase Stanford Prison Experiment in high school, but it was like from everyone's arguing about what's going on. They're talking about the relationship between two guys. One's a prisoner, one's a guard, and then the Zimbardo character is sitting back in his hot curled hair and his Boogie Nights suit, and he goes like, guys, you're missing the larger point. The point is that the two guys you're talking about were separated by a coin toss. And that really that's why we continue to refer to the Stanford Prison Experiment. It's not because it was immaculately scientific. It was, if anything, totally dramatic and fantastical. It was they didn't set out. I always pictured, I was telling you in the green room, every time I heard about the Stanford Prison Experiment, which for anyone who's, the headline of it that you hear about in high school is, okay, they did this college experiment where they took a group of volunteers, they made some of them randomly guards, and they made some of them randomly prisoners, and what happened over time very quickly is that they fell into roles of abusiveness that transcended any rules that they were given. The guards were abusive to the prisoners were abusive to each other. Every abuse. It all happened even though it was all a big game. It just happened for real, and even as the movie represents, it spread upward to Zimbardo, who started acting like the prison warden, started becoming paranoid about one of the escaped prisoners coming back to, he himself became part of the experiment because it wasn't science, it was art. And it was very valid art that you can refer to very scientifically when you say, yeah, but circumstances fuck you up. If you're deprived of your freedom in any way, you begin to behave like someone that is not free. And you start verifying all of these negative expectations of yourself. If you are given privilege and power, you start overreacting to threats to it because you think that someone dropping a pencil means that you should go fuck yourself, and that you start seeing the merits and coming down hard and drawing a line in the sand. And it starts with guys going, why am I talking so much? You're on the show. What was your process like when you're getting this job? I want to hear about how much reading did you have to do to write the screenplay?
Well, I had to do a lot. I got all of, we had, Zimbardo's life rights, and he was open to us. So I got to talk to him whenever I needed to. I interviewed him and his wife together and separately. He sent me all the original paperwork from the experiment that they documented everything. I mean, everybody, that's one thing, there's so much happened in those 6 days that you can't put it all in a movie. But one of the things they did is they had a standard set of questions that they asked all the prisoners every day. And you could just see them, through when you read this stuff. It's fascinating that they are being dehumanized. And even there's a bit in the movie where they're asked to write a letter home after 2 days, and half of the kids signed their number and not their name.
Whoa.
Right.
Because it had been drilled into them so much over the previous couple of days.
Because they thought they would get rebuked because their mail would be gone through, and they get in trouble for not doing that?
Well, they knew their mail would be gone through.
No, they knew it would be gone through because they were not allowed to seal their envelopes. They had to hand them back, so they were going to be read.
So they became a number just in case.
Yeah, I think it was just more that the indoctrination of the first couple of days really started to work on them. When you're referred to as a number and not a name over and over again, and you're sleep deprived, and you have to rattle off your number 1,000 times a day, it was just easier.
Yeah.
It became sort of their identity.
Sorry, Dan. Yeah, you worked and met Zimbardo?
Oh yeah.
And what's his how does he look back on this, and what's it like having this rehashed through?
Well, the good thing about him is that he absolutely 100% owns it. He's like, I realized I fucked up. I fucked up by making myself part of the experiment.
Right.
And it really took, if you've seen the movie, it took someone from the outside coming in to really say, hey, you guys are totally fucking up here. You have to stop this. Because nobody else saw it. They just saw, wow, we're getting a really cool, this is a real study. We're getting real information and didn't realize that they were hurting people in the process.
But now, wait a minute. I mean, and I confess, I forgot about a Harmontown meeting that was happening at my house, so I haven't actually watched the end of the movie.
Oh, no. Spoilers.
I haven't got to the third act yet. The story we hear in high school is the experiment got out of control, but much like Frankenstein's experiment, mythically, the thing that made it a disaster is the valuable thing about it. I mean, does he look at it as like, yeah, that thing I did that was like groundbreaking, or is the whole thing just a cautionary tale, an Icarian tragedy?
I think it's closer to that. I think that one of the things is that when you first start reading about it and not talking to him directly, it's got its own life out there. He's got his own like media life, and the media and reporters and stuff have built him up to be this guy that designed this experiment to generate that response.
Right.
Where the actual fact was he didn't expect anything from this. This was no different than any other experiment that they've been doing at Stanford, other than the fact that it was a 24-hour day experiment and it was going to go for 2 weeks.
What kind of data do you think he thought he was going to get? There's a clear point in your narrative where it's like, oh shit, this is, and then the eyes get big. But what kind of data in his mind, like?
I think part of the Navy were one of the people that funded the experiment, and they wanted to know what kind of mental effects incarceration would have on people like in submarines.
How were they going to measure it though? Like, were they going to have them recite the alphabet at the end of each day, and would they?
No, I think a lot of it was just that daily the daily questions that they had to answer.
Okay.
How much did he go in with? Did he have like a sociological point to prove going in? Like he thought he might be able. Like, you ever see the 7-Up documentaries, the 7 and Up? You watch the beginning of that, you kind of feel like he was going in trying to prove class things. Then it turns into something very different. Do you think he came in with a sociological point of view on this, or he really just said, let's just get raw, unadulterated data?
I think he just basically wanted to see what... basically what he learned from it, I think, is what he was looking for, which is how... the environment can change people. He constantly says, the whole idea about like prisons is there are no bad apples, there are just bad barrels.
Right.
So if you have an inherently, because all these kids were inherently good, they were all screened to be like all American, normal kids.
They're all white in the movie. There's one Asian guy.
There's one Asian guy.
Is that based on reality? Were you guys?
That's based on reality.
So was that just a sort of, was that when was this, the 60s?
This was in 1971.
So was that just sort of like, black kids aren't college kids? Was that what was at play there for
I
lack of...
honestly can't tell you, except that this took place in August of 71. So
I would say in Stanford of 71, that might have been a good representation of the student
But
body
these weren't
there.
Stanford students.
Not all of them. Some of them were.
Some of them were.
But it was just an ad placed in the paper. But it was during the summer, so a lot of kids that were still there for the summer came in and interviewed, and they interviewed quite a few people to find the 24 or whatever.
But did you? Sorry, I kind of railroaded your answer. The faces that we see on screen and the ethnic spectrum that they represent, that's
accurate?
Okay. So there was like one there
was one Asian student, and then one of the obviously Carlo Prescott, the guy that they brought in to advise, was a black man who was in prison for 17 years before this.
Right.
And then one of Zimbardo's grad assistants, the grad students, was also a black guy.
Yeah, and he initially, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the more would be spoilers, I think, because the narrative, like, it's like you already know the real life story is that the experiment got out of control. But what I've always felt about hearing that, because I've probably referred to the Stanford prison experiment 1,000 times in 20 years when talking about politics or anything, talking about particularly fascism, is like, well, it's a successful experiment, not from a scientific perspective, but from the fact that someone once did this thing. And it turns out
it changed the way that experimentation could be done in colleges now. I mean, literally, it's like they didn't have ethics committees back then. So ethically, this thing was one thing. Like the Department of Justice or some government agency reviewed this whole thing.
But when you say it that way, there's an unspoken supposition there that the information that came out of this experience was completely not valuable at all to future generations.
No, it absolutely was. It was just that they found the methods in which they did this were harmful.
But is there a
way to do that properly? Is there a way to do an experiment like that without hurting the subjects? It doesn't seem like
probably not.
Right.
But they didn't know that at the time.
Well, it's more of. But the thing is, in the movie, as it reveals, it's a very organic process. It's like he set up a situation. He thought that the glibness of it, the thing that I always pictured was like this, like you said, Jeff, you said like a set of an Elvis number where it's like you pictured Stanford like shelling out for fake prison cells.
I pictured Jailhouse Rock where there was 4 tiers of dudes dancing and.
This movie
if you can't find a partner,
the story takes place in a hallway of Stanford College on summer break, where a couple of offices, they carved the doors out, put bars in the doors, but some people were in charge of when the doors were unlocked and when they weren't, and they had burlap sacks that were like dresses. There was a deliberate attempt to feminize, which in 1971 was the equivalent of there's a Zimbardo actually laying it out, saying, yeah, someone questions, goes, feminize, and he's like, yes, to remove everything that they are. He's saying, there's an unspoken thing there. It's like going waist deep into this thing and himself becoming infected by it, becoming the warden, losing his mind to the same extent that Sigmund Freud injecting cocaine into his own arm, did yield some shit. This is important. It's important.
No, it's definitely important. It just, again, now ethically, you would not get this past any college ethics board.
But it's like, is this a case where ethics, which are the thing that are being looked at, like the reason
do we get lucky?
If we become really good at conducting Stanford prison experiments, we're not getting accurate data.
Right.
We're not. We don't want to become really, really good at making sure no one gets hurt during the Stanford prison experiment. We want to. Well, again, the accurate data is that if you conduct one, you become fucking Hitler overnight. If you put yourself in the position of judging what you're measuring, and if the people that everyone is intoxicated instantly by fascism, by hierarchical thinking, and like answering to a higher calling, everybody dresses it in different ways. I'm here for my $15 a day. He's looking at it like, I'm going to publish a paper on this. He's not even sure what he's drinking by the time he's drunk on it. He's seeing images of students punching other students, and he's thinking, I made this happen. This is a successful experiment. This is a
live thing. And so, again, the paranoia comes in where when like the family members come to visit, he's terrified one of them is going to pull their kid out. To the point where there's a really great scene that Billy Crudup, who plays Zimbardo in the movie, handles a
sorry, some crud heads here.
Crud heads. No. We got big Zimbardo fans.
They come to every podcast. They want more Billy Crudup information. Unlike tonight, we always have to disappoint them.
No,
shout out Monica.
One thing I will say about Billy Crudup is he has a sort of like a monologue at the end of the movie where he pulls the plug. We shot everything else before that. So all these kids have been working together for 2.5 weeks, and he walked in on his first day and delivered like his last scene in the movie.
Nice.
And it was like, holy shit, this guy's good.
Were you on the set the whole time?
I wasn't. I was a writer on Chicago Fire for a couple of years, and I was shooting an episode at the same time. So I was going back and forth between here and Chicago.
Now, is it true that the experiment, the Chicago Fire writing room, didn't you guys set a lot of fires in Chicago?
No comment.
Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. I want to look at because you've got a bigger career than that. Like, we can talk about what it was like. So you were at South Park from the beginning. You were saying
No, I was there for season 5 and 6.
Oh. All right. Well, those were the worst seasons ever. No, but it sounded like just because of the way you're describing, like being friends with George Clooney and all that stuff, that you were there on the very ground floor. But like, what was it like in those days? Well, were you full time?
Yeah, well, I was a staff writer, so the way that they work, by the time I got in there, their process had gotten to a point where basically Trey Parker was writing and directing every episode. And so they'd bring you like on a writer's retreat at the beginning of the season. You know, like we went up to Whistler and we'd ski half the day and then sit in a room. And, you know, your only real job was to be attentive to the media and like what's going on in society. So we'd sit in a room and we'd spitball stuff, and then all of a sudden we'd have like 5 or 6 ideas for shows. And we come back to LA, and in order to get the show done on time, they had to generate 8 pages of script a day. And so Trey would go off and start these scripts, and then whenever he got stuck, he'd call the writers in, and we'd just sit around. You know, you come in, they buy you lunch, you sit around a big table with some of the funniest people you've ever met, and you laugh until your face wants to fall off. Mm-hmm. And hopefully you throw something out that ends up in the show, and then, you know, 2 days later it's on television.
Right.
You know, which is amazing for animation.
Who else that we would know? I've had friends, and Dan's had friends that have worked on that show throughout the years. Who was there back in those days that we might know?
Well, Trey Parker, Matt Stone.
Never heard of them.
Kyle McCullough, David Goodman, Glasgow Phillips.
Hack. No, I'm kidding.
I'm trying to think who else. Nancy Pimental was there for a little bit. She was there I worked with her for 2 weeks.
She's big with Crit-Up fans.
Yeah.
Well, that corroborates greatly with we do have a couple friends here and there. The show's been on so long, almost everybody in LA knows somebody that worked on South Park at some point. That is the legend, is that like you there's almost a feeling of guilt at how much Trey Parker is like he calls you in a room, and then you guys talk, and then you laugh, and then at some point he leaves the room, and then he writes more
and those guys are there, 20 hours a day, and we come in for 2 hours and laugh it up and leave, which it's a dream job. And I have to say though, when you first walk into that, I'm not necessarily first and foremost a comedy writer, so they just thought I was funny. So that first day, I'm sitting in there, and half the staff are actors as well. So they get up and they act out their character stuff, and I'm like, I'm not that at all. And I sat there for probably the first hour of the first meeting, just going like, what am I doing here? How did this happen? And I realized that if you don't open your mouth and say something, they're just going to fire your ass. So I threw something out, and it got a huge laugh, and then I was like, oh, that's what this job is.
Now, to what extent, because this is the first time I've heard about those retreats. And I always imagined them with this sense of dread because they sounded like auditions. Like you went on the retreat, and then some people that was vodka. Don't worry about it. Some people that go on these retreats, everybody gets to have the time of their life. Some people going on the retreat get the job. Some people don't.
That was earlier on.
You're making it sound
earlier.
More like
it was more of an audition thing. By the time I was there, that was just I came in the middle of a season. So I worked on 3 episodes, then went on a retreat, worked on 6 episodes, then went on another retreat, and worked on another 6 episodes.
They actually generate a voluminous amount of their season on the retreat whenever.
Yeah, I mean that's the basic structure, and it happens usually about 3 weeks before the season starts, so it's relatively topical.
Did they structure it where you got to, as a staff writer, get your name on a script? Where you got to?
Nope.
That was later down the road, or?
But my name's on every episode I worked on as a staff writer at the end, so that's more than almost every other television show. Staff writers don't even get.
Is there a script? You don't have to say yes or no. You don't have to say which script. Is there a script that you feel very responsible for? That you got a lot of stuff done on.
Yeah, there was one. I'm trying to think of the name of the script. It was basically about. It grew out of a conversation between myself and Matt Stone about the Star Wars special editions. That we just fucking hated them so much, and E.T. was coming out.
That's a walkie-talkie one.
Yeah. So right around that same time, we came up with the idea that the boys had to break into Lucasfilm or Skywalker Sound and get the print of Raiders of the Lost Ark back. Yeah, I think. It's called Free Hat. Yeah. That was one, and then the only other one that I can claim any responsibility for is the one where Kenny dies for real. I just thought, what would happen if we just killed him? And like there was a TV movie version of Brian's song that was on somewhere around there. So we just took that and made it into this whole like, oh my God, our friend is gonna die.
But you probably were gone by the time like what Chef had to be.
Yeah, I was gone.
I mean that show. If there should be an absolutely separate Emmy category, but only one show would win it for the ratio, the complicated ratio between passion, relevance. Manpower, because there's like always been very few people working on that show relative to and the speed with which they're working, and how incredibly funny and like just like what words do you say that like balls out, like fucking brave, bold, like opinionated, like fuck this thing, like how many of us in this room have like been swirling around with some thought in our head about some piece of pop culture or politics or something, and then we get this like decidedly kind of admittedly maybe libertarian view from South Park, but it kind of like pushes us over into how to feel about something because it's done with this like grace and humor and wit.
The great thing about those guys and what was really intoxicating working with them is they have no tolerance for bullshit or hypocrisy. So if they see something, they have a point of view on it, and they just come out and say it.
They just have been so ripe for corruption so long ago. I mean,
and they just, they just haven't. Yeah. I mean, they're in a really wonderful place where they can do whatever they want, and they've been able to because they were successful with the show right from the beginning.
I feel spoiled because I only ever I like South Park's gonna at some point not exist. It'll probably outlive me, but the way I eat. There will be a day maybe when it's like gone and done, and then there's gonna be eulogies for it, like there was for fucking whatever the hell that gossip rag was. All of a sudden we found out that it was important that what the fuck was Gawker? Gawker was so important. Well, I imagine South Park's going to turn out to be pretty fucking important the day it goes off air. Like I feel spoiled in the meantime because I've only ever just like randomly run back into it like an old lover and just always astounded at how still fucking funny it is. Like you just watch just like, oh, how is it still this funny? It's 48 years old.
The cool thing is that they kind of mixed things up the last two seasons where they made them serialized. Mm-hmm. So as they had a storyline, I think that's the last
episode I saw that ended, that crescendoed in the divorce, the moving away, and I haven't watched it since because I've just spoiled South Park wise. I'm like, well, someday I'll just be But I mean, it's I've always been astounded by it. Like Cartman is probably one of the most important television characters in
he's right up there with Archie Bunker for
me. Absolutely. I always reference him in the same breath as Archie Bunker when you talk about like the importance of this id character. Yeah.
For me, the seasons or the episodes that don't like do it for me as much as other seasons or episodes is when they got Cartman wrong. When they got Cartman right, it made it pretty special. Because they made it really, really bad. Like, really horrible.
Right before I got there, they did the one where Cartman basically killed someone's parents and fed them to him in Chile.
But that's a lot of people's favorite episode.
Something Must Die. What's it called?
Yeah.
But I think, what's his last name? Scott Tenorman Must Die.
Just drinking his tears at the end. Like, oh, the sweet misery of your tears.
That's a fucking doozy.
If I didn't read that was all Chevy Chase's character on Community. Like that was all I was ever doing, was just ripping off Cartman. It was just the idea was like, well, there's a character who's just like, he's the voice of that petty child within you, but that includes talking to God. Like God is somebody that's going to ground you, make you take a time out. You don't want we have a word for someone that responds to God saying that with "fuck you." That word is sometimes hero, like mythic on a mythic level. To say "fuck you" to mortality, to say "fuck you" to the way you got out of bed in the morning. It's often the face of privilege and oppression and bigotry, but it's then every once in a while it's like, yeah, don't go gentle into that good night. We root for Cartman because he's safely in the package of a reprehensible troll, but we get to like sap some of that toxin just enough to dab on our tongue and get high a little bit because it's like in a safe container. And we've been learning that. I don't know if you heard me babbling. I was talking about the Daryl Davis documentary. Have you seen that?
I saw like a news piece on him
because
I haven't seen the whole doc.
He's basically dedicated his life to this sort of like tract of belief that it's like you don't want these people in the shadows. You want them as much as it pains us. You don't. It's like what good comes from them hiding? It's they're as bad as they are, and they're twice as bad because whatever butthurt fucking whatever birthday party they didn't get invited to, whatever they're fucking cranking about, like sorry, but like you it's better to talk to him at Denny's and it's like he has this like collection of KKK robes that are the slow erosion through friendship one-on-one of him sitting down with a dude who says he wants all this and that to be this and that way and being friendly to them because a friendship with him is completely incalculable to that philosophy. Or maybe they just outgrow it. That would be an argument against what he's doing. But he's like they eventually like leave. They give him his robes.
They don't outgrow it,
and their chapters fall away.
I just this past year was developing a TV show that was about a guy that has to infiltrate a white supremacist organization, and doing a lot of research into that, you come to realize that a lot of those people like they don't hate you because you're a different color. They hate you because they don't know you.
Right.
You know, and that when people indoctrinate people into these hate groups, they basically are saying, like, look, it's not your fault that you're poor and broke and stupid. It's their fault.
Right.
So by shifting the blame, I mean, half the people that are white supremacists just don't know any better. They've either been raised in that culture. No, I mean, they literally don't. No, I'm telling you, it's
Look,
literally
this energy that's being generated right now in this room, which I'd prefer to pass on. But it's like that heat, that hot front meeting that cold front, that hurricane. Watch this documentary because that what you're feeling. One person is like very like they're like yes, like they're not saying racists are misunderstood. You need to talk to them more. But then someone else is like, what the fuck are we doing? No, we don't need to understand them. There's a guy from the Southern Poverty Law Center in the documentary who's like, he's a white dude talking to a black dude who's his age, and neither of them are heroes or villains, but he's like, look, one thing he says is, you're dealing on a retail level, I'm dealing on a wholesale level. I don't fucking care whether you made a friend with a racist yesterday. You know, good for him, great. I want this shit illegal. You know, and it's like, there are no villains in this story, but one thing that endures, because he goes to Baltimore and he's talking to millennial black activists who are fucking like, they're on point. You do not want to be like talking down to them. They've been arrested 1,000 times, maced 1,000 times. They're in the trenches. If we're gonna grant veterans of Iraq and things, if we're going to say that when those people speak that we owe it to them to not, shit on them and dismiss them, then we definitely have to extend that to activists who work in urban environments where you're on the front lines. Like, and these guys are smart and they're absolutely bewildered by this old baby boomer guy who's going like, I got this Klan robe from the KKK and I got this Confederate flag and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? How long have you been doing this? And he's like 50, I don't know how many, 50 years. I have no idea how long it's been. And you got 25 racist dudes from Memphis to give you their robes when they got tired of being racist? Like, this seems like a fetish. And they try. They try on both sides. I think that and what you see is that Gerald Davis is like, the word fetish is not. It's like, wow, yeah, because he's in his comfort zone when he's laying back and he's expressing this unbelievable amount of acquiescence. But then they're calling him out and going like, that's your comfort zone. That's you accruing this collection of shit in your garage. We're out here nameless, faceless, taking, it's stun batons and stuff. Then an older dude, baby boomer, I don't know if that's accurate, older black dude who's like those guys, protector, mentor. Those guys both get up. They can't take the interview anymore. They're like, they don't yell, they don't shout, but it breaks down. They get up and they leave. That guy comes over. He's got a gray beard. He's the same generation as this guy. He's urban, and he is like there. He's been like proud of those guys, and like he's like, I can't shake your hand. But then that's the guy that like almost spirals. He's like shouting. He's like, get the fuck out of here and don't come back by the end of their conversation, and doesn't want to hear Daryl's side of it because it's too offensive. The thing that I walked away from it was like this weird thing. Why am I dumping this on you? I don't know, but the thing that was the most pronounced about it was the fact that like those young guys who were so smart and so cool and they had given so much. One of the things he got them to say, and I don't mean got them to say the way you get Donald Trump to say that microwaves aren't cameras. I mean, he took the conversation down a river that afforded us this glimpse around this curve of trees. One of the things he got them to say was that they didn't believe that white supremacists could change. Now, that's a very, very interesting thing to admit to yourself, because it puts you firmly on the side of a line in a world that we're either going to fix, save, abandon, tear up, fighting each other. It puts you on the side as just as you are and as righteous as you are and as right as you may be. But it puts you firmly on the side of a war between people who think that we can do better and people who are like, fuck it, we're fighting. They said that, they said, no, I don't think they can change. I don't know if they really, he didn't give them a slide rule and 20 minutes to answer his question. I think maybe they would have said over 20 minutes, like, well, people don't change through the actions that you're taking. People change from, blah, 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 and fish rots from the head or whatever. But in that moment, they're like, no, they don't, you can't change them. They don't change them. And so now it's like, and he says, of course, he's aggravating them by saying this. He's like, well, you sound like Donald Trump. But Donald Trump hadn't been elected yet at the time of this interview. And then one of the guys goes like, I hope Donald Trump gets elected. Because it's like the wolf versus the fox. I know what Donald Trump stands for. I'm not voting anyway and all this shit. And you're like, fuck this, like, where have we all been? At the end of the documentary, Donald Trump's elected. You have no idea where to fucking, your head is spinning. You're like, who wins? Who loses? What is happening? You just feel like you're being flushed down a toilet, like spiritually, because you're just like, oh, we're all good people when we look in the mirror, but we're all fucking like insane and we're going to rip our faces off in the mirror and we're just going to wake up and an octopus creature is going to go, you failed. End the human simulation. Octopus 179, you, when given the opportunity to be 5 different colors of chimp, you fuck up.
That seems like an unfair test to put on anybody.
To deprive them of anything other than what's actually being tested? Like their inherent fucking intense, like... Yeah, I mean, yes, I agree it's unfair, but we come from a mythology as primates where like, oh, you're supposed to know the score. God's supposed to come down and tell you don't eat the apple, and then I'll pay your rent. And if anything goes wrong, you just blame women, So, like we're supposed to get a spreadsheet at the beginning of the test. Well, maybe everybody else feels gaslit in the sense that they didn't know what the test was. It was what's the chapter in Genesis when God comes back down after Eve gets made and says, "I told him don't eat the apple." I can't remember. I don't know, but it's not a newspaper anyway. It's a metaphor for.
Tim just answered Dan's question. Brown. You really are the worst interviewee of all time. You just sit there and don't answer shit.
You think working on South Park for their first 3 episodes earns you the right to sit there and say nothing? Well, I put my ass on the line about the shit I've gone through at Stanford. I wrote Monster House. Do you have any idea how much research I had to do to write Monster House?
Do you have any idea what Monster House is?
Yeah, actually, my roommate from college was one of the animators on that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So you employed him?
I created a job, but you know, I thought that was going to be a live action script when we wrote it. It wasn't like, which is why I've made quite a bit of money on that movie. Because it was written under live action rules.
So you get residuals.
Yeah. So every time they go to Blu-ray in Singapore or something, I get a check that's like based on, oh, this was a WGA, blah, blah, blah.
Fascinating.
But Tim, didn't you win some prestigious like film writing award? Like some sort of like, I'm not saying
I was about to ask about that. The Walter Salt Award.
Waldo Salt.
Named after famed writer who discovered salt. He wrote Salt, right?
And he invented wearing striped red and white shirts, crowds, and hiding in large crowds.
No, what is that award?
It was the Screenwriting Award at Sundance. So we actually, I wrote this movie back in 2004. It took forever to get made because the company we had written it for went out of business, and we found out they borrowed over $1 million against our script. So our producer, a wonderful guy named Brent Emery, literally spent 7 years chasing down 81 different chain of title issues and settling up with everyone so that they would get some of their money back if we made the movie. And then it was like all of a sudden I got a call in June like, I think we're making this movie. And then in August we were shooting it. In November we got into Sundance and it premiered in January.
Now, what is the? But it's not a Sundance award for best Bloobity Blue and a Bloobity Blue. It's some guy's name, which
Waldo
means
Salt is I guess it's like an honorarium or whatever. I mean, it was set up by his family, I think, to honor independent screenwriting or whatever. But it's the one screenwriting award they do every year at Sundance. So that was pretty unexpected.
Yeah, but Dan wrote Monster House.
Where's my Waldo Salt?
Did you take it to Sundance?
I would have. Yeah, it's a story. It's a children's horror film. It's about a house that's.
Hey, Spencer, you've been awful quiet over there.
No.
Let's bring it back to the Stanford prison for a moment. Now, if you had your pick and you couldn't, like, if the coin were tossed, what do you think you would have been better or worse at, being the guard or being a prisoner?
I'm sure I would be a kick-ass guard. That's just my nature. I can be petty and mean and.
No, but that means you'd be a worse guard. Like you would be a worse person as a guard.
Here's the thing: is like our whole goal with the entire movie was just to have people walk out at the end and ask that question of themselves, like, do I have it within myself to turn into such an evil fucking person if given the opportunity and having no repercussions.
Right.
And to that extent, I think the film works. It's funny that I'd never seen a movie or anything I'd written in front of a huge audience before. And at Sundance, we had like 1,200 people at the first screening. And there's a title card that comes up that just says Day 2. And literally, the everything that happened in the first day was so, like, everyone in the audience was like, holy shit. That, like, the air got sucked out of the room, and it was like one of the most, like, the hair stood up on the back of my neck, and I was like, oh my God. Like, a movie just got a reaction, and I had something to do with that.
Yeah, that happened to me and Cody, my girlfriend, when we were watching it today at Day 4. Because wait, what? Day 4? And I checked the progress indicator, and but that's like part of the point. I think that so is there. The answer to that question is yes, correct? The people who are, if you're made a guard by an institution, guard in quotes, meaning a district manager, if you're told that you're in charge of whether or not racism ends because you're the race that ends racism, if you're told that you're the employee of the month, if you're in charge of this parking spot, you're in charge of anything, any power that you're given by an institution, it seeps into the cracks of your soul, and you have two choices. You take on that role and actually surrender part of your empathy and individuality in favor of serving that role better. That's the important thing, is that the guys that early on, who started as a joke because putting on the uniforms reminded them of Cool Hand Luke. One guy goes, I'm going to do my impression of a character from Cool Hand Luke. And then he comes out. He knows what to say to the president. I want that you go to prominent communicate. Whoa. And then the scientists are going, that guy's good. More importantly, nothing happens. He's now in charge. Everyone that's watching is going like, well, and then the shift changes and they go, yeah, we did some fucked up shit today and nothing happened. Don't you think that's part of what it is?
Well, Dan, like you are famous for you hate being told what to do. Let's say that you were how old are these subjects back then? Early 20s?
They were between 18 and 22.
And let's say that you, Dan, found out you were the guard. You don't like being told what to do. You probably also you don't like. Well, you do like telling people what to do because you're a showrunner. That's part of your job description. Like, what do you think you would be as a guard?
As a guard, I would be like, I would posture. But I would be eclipsed by some guy who went fascistic. I would be eclipsed by the guy who like jumped into the role.
Well, like a while back, I asked Spencer first. Like I'm curious. Spencer, you're so neutral. Like I can't picture you being turning into a shitty, dominated prisoner or a fascistic bully guard.
Yeah.
But there are some people that did
that response makes me think I don't want you as my guard.
But there's an important thing here that you're getting to, which is that there are what?
No, just all they said was yeah. It was a complex subject.
There's a way to be a prisoner as well, and have these narcissistic tendencies or things. There's like as a prisoner, they asked them, would you rather be a prisoner or a guard? They don't necessarily
and
give them the
everyone
jobs
wanted to be a prisoner because they thought it'd be less work.
Because if you're a prisoner, you can just
sleep.
You can be Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah,
the most work is that you're defiant.
You get 3 hots in the cot.
You're always righteous. The truth is always on your side.
That's prison talk.
You can't be a bad. There's no such thing as a villainous prisoner. You don't have any power. We live in fear of being bad people too. Nobody wanted to be a guard, but then the people that excel at being guards are exhibiting the same personalities as the people who are rallying the prisoners, and that's when Zimbardo says these guys are swappable with a coin toss. That means in every revolution, in every third world country, when you have like guerrillas coming down from the hills and liberating the poor, and then one of them becomes a dictator, and then you have the NSA interfering, and it's like all these. People are handing you power, handing you roles.
It's also there's also a certain level of compliance in certain people, because part of what this showed, as well as what happened at Abu Ghraib, is also what happened in Nazi Germany. Is that if you're in a situation where you feel you have zero power and there's nothing you can do to change it, like the people that are against you are so massively in power. Some people it's normalization. It's that shit that's happening now.
People like on the Eastern Front willfully were corralled into a giant sand pit, and they knew they were going to be killed, and they did it meekly and mildly, and
because that's what society told them is their role.
Now, did any of the subjects go to the film, see the film? Are they still like?
I don't know. I know. I was very happy that Zimbardo and his wife saw the movie right before we went to Sundance, and he came to Sundance and spoke and did all that stuff. But I was very happy because it's really weird telling somebody's story and trying to get it right and making sure not to also let him off the hook. For dramatic effect, in reality, we haven't gotten to the third act yet, so I can't tell you. In reality, it ended a little bit differently than it does in the movie.
Because that woman, the triangle love woman, comes back.
No.
Leo DiCaprio comes through a skylight. That's how you got your funding. Yeah. Traffic was a bitch.
Fucking California, man.
But let's mash a really hot button right now. But it's the elephant in the room, which is really interesting, is that prisons it was all dudes running it. So the whole movie is all dudes dealing with dude issues, to the point where they're talking about stripping dudes of their dudeness, their individuality, and they're using it synonymously with the phrase feminization. Put them in dresses.
Wait till you get to the third act.
Call them she, call them her, call them, and it's like, let's reduce them of their individuality, not their masculinity, their individuality, by feminizing them. 1971. So now you cut to 2017, Casual Friday, and somebody says to Becky in marketing, like, you should wear a shorter skirt or something. It's like there's no bars on the windows. The thing is, this was a hallway at Stanford College. None of these kids during this entire story ever accidentally started believing they were in prison. What happened was they were subjected long enough to deprivation of this and enhancement of that that their behavior changed. And it can happen in a hallway. It can happen with cubicles around you.
Well, that's one of the great things about the way Kyle Alvarez directed the movie. And I thought he had a really good idea, which was when you first get introduced to the prison, it's all shown in a master shot. So you see it's a fucking hallway and 3 classrooms and a closet used as a hole. During the process of the movie, the lens is closed down and down and down to the point where when things are really going shitty, you're in close on people and there's a lot of diffusion. So it makes makes you feel claustrophobic. And then when Zimbardo comes in and ends it, you cut back to that master. You realize that the place hasn't changed. The situation has changed.
Right.
Was there anybody? I mean, I read about this a long time ago, and in a psychology class or something, and it's super fascinating, and we all know about that. We say these words, but did anybody emerge from that, guard or prisoner, and like, fuck this shit, I'm walking out of here? Like, did anybody like flex up and go,
Nope.
This is dumb?
No, that's the one thing. Nobody ever directly asked to be let out. When they could, at any point, they could just say, you know what, fuck this. Let me go home. You can't keep me here. Nobody did it because the rules from above down kept them feeling like, this is one of the things that Zimbardo and Stanley Milgram have done in a lot of different experiments. One of which that comes to mind is Stanley Milgram did an experiment where he put an ad in the paper for like a secretary and rented an office in a high-rise in New York and hired 2 people to be plants, basically, in the office. So when the woman would come in to interview for the office, these 2 people were told to stay still and don't react. The woman would sit down and they'd start pumping smoke into the room. And because the other 2 people wouldn't react to it, the third person, 9 out of 10 times, wouldn't react to it. The fact that the fucking building's on fire. I mean, that's how powerful society can be.
That's me. I mean, I think I'd be that third person. I truly feel like so defined by what everyone is reacting to. I feel like I wait way too long. I told a story about going out to lunch with my friend Dino and our new CFO at my studio, and he started choking on a piece of hanger steak, and I was very disappointed with my reaction time. It's a man choking to death. I was like waiting for what? Bruce Willis to like come in? I don't know, man, but I'm afraid to find out what I'm made of. That's why I bought a gun when Trump got elected. I don't want to know what I'm made of because the answer is nothing. I'm made of nothing. What am I, Jean-Claude Van Damme? I'm not made of anything. I didn't earn anything.
I've spoken about it on the show before, I'm sure. I got pulled over on a warrant. I hit and run a sign, and I got picked up on a Saturday morning and spent all weekend in jail in Whittier. And Whittier, California. Yeah, I'm not proud of it. But I got handcuffed, put in the car, put in jail, and I was in the jail probably 6 or 7 or 8 cells. They left me in they put me in the tank, like the drunk tank, because like everyone else was 3 to a cell. So they were like 2 guys on a cot and 1 guy on the floor, and I would have to deal with the drunks that were let in every night or both nights. And what was amazing was I was a college kid. I was the only white guy in there, and I was treated as shitty as they were. And you were instantly not a person. And I changed the way I talked, the way I made eye contact with the officers there. You're instantly told that you're a piece of shit, and when you leave there, you still think so. You don't leave there and go, "Oh, I'm going to walk home now. I got out of here finally after being treated like garbage." And again, this wasn't Peru, and it wasn't this wasn't Syria. It was California, but like
Whittier.
Yeah, Whittier is only nominally California. I'm not saying that like my story is the worst story of all time. I was surprised how instantly I felt like completely not in any sort of power and instantly not an equal with anybody there. You're a scumbag and you're dirt, and I felt like that for days afterwards. And
well, imagine that for 30 years.
I can't. Well, I'm fascinated by and watch shows about people being locked up. The time passes. It doesn't pass. And when you leave there, you're not better. You're psychologically like a little dizzy and fucked up, and probably a lot worse if you had to go through actual shit. I was just in a fucking drunk tank for 52 hours. It was a nightmare. So what I was thinking about the Stanford experiment is like they love fucking with you the moment you're in there. They love it.
Well, part of it is also boredom. They're doing 8-hour shifts where they have nothing to do except, well, we can either sit in this room or we can bring these guys out and make them do jumping jacks and push them around and fuck
And
them.
they get spit on and yelled at and harassed and all this stuff, and they just love having like it's a shit job. It's noisy. It smells like crap. It's the food is garbage. They're not happy. They don't like their lives. They wanted to be in the Secret Service with the FBI, and they didn't. And it's a fucking bummer. And they do take a little bit of just human glee in knowing that they fucked you around more than they got fucked around that day. And I was a sophomore at USC at the time. I was, like everything going. Like the rest of the guys in there, the only people that were nice to me were the Cholo gangbangers in there who fucking looked after me and fucking and they nicknamed me Hollywood. And when I got...
You'll go far in prison with a nickname like Hollywood.
I was worried about what would happen if I had to go to county to get processed out. Luckily, I just got to get kicked out of the of Whittier jail. But when I got handcuffed, like ankles and wrists, to the courthouse to walk down the street. And we get in there, and it's a bunch of dudes that come in from county, and some guys are going away for attempted murder, some guys are going away for like assault, terrorist threats, which means like I just threatened to kill somebody in front of a police officer. Some are going to go away for 20 years. Some guys 6 months. And everybody was going up, like all the veterano, like Cholo guys, walking up to everybody like, "Hey man, you're going to get love. Don't worry. Like you got 6 years. You'll be out in 2.5 homes. And also, you're going to be with my homie in Chino. Like I know this fucking guy. He's my cousin." And they were all going around and telling everybody it's going to be okay. Like you're going to be looked after there. Like I'll make sure you talk to my friend so and so. And I had to get walked up to the courthouse. I saw one judge with the oldest dude in there. This like with the teardrops and the whole thing, this old school veterano, and he walked up and he goes, "Listen, man, like you're a good kid. Like what are you doing in here?" I'm like, I fucking didn't pay a fine, and like I knocked over a sign and didn't have the money to pay for the thing, and had a bench warrant, and I didn't pay the fine. He goes, "Yeah, this judge fucking hates you, man. Like he's an asshole. Like he hates me, he hates everybody. But we're gonna go see this guy. And we're handcuffed, walking to the elevator together to go up, and he goes, you don't say shit unless he talks to you, and if he talks to you, don't say anything but the answer to his fucking question." And if he asks you anything else, say you're missing your fucking second day of your second year at school, and you're a good kid, and you don't belong here. And when he stood up to get his thing, I had to stand up, and when I had to, like, vice versa, and I got back down, it all went cool. We got back down, and they kicked me out. And they go, "Jeff Davis," and I'm not joking. I know everyone thinks I'm making up these fucking stories. And I don't care if you do, because this happened, and I will cry thinking about it. There were like 15, 20, 22 guys in there. The toughest guy in there was sleeping as a pillow. He had the only roll of toilet paper, and that was his pillow, so no one had toilet paper. Everyone else being really nice to each other. They're all in the county blues and orange. And when they called my name, Jeff Davis, the fucking guys knew me. They went, "Hollywood!" I was like, "Wait, what does that mean? Am I going to county?" And like, no, that means you got love, Holmes. That means you got love. And when they let me out, when they fucking let me out the door, fucking dudes came up and hugged me, and the cops outside looked at me like they wanted to fucking beat my ass in the parking lot. So it's a story about me being the coolest guy in the world. Fucking make myself a drink. I can't believe I have a story I haven't told in the show already.
You told that story before. We have 500 episodes. It's fine. It's fine.
I told it better now.
I know. But the interesting thing about that, though, when I listen to that, though, having watched Tim's screenplay movie, I was going to say Tim's movie, but then I didn't want the director to be like, send me a rabbit's head or something, whatever the directors do, and you call it the writer's movie. There's a point in there where there's attention paid to breaking up the solidarity within the ranks. And when we talk about like, oh, the guards are pieces of shit and the prisoners have all this solidarity, it's not even, it's like, my new eye on that is like, yeah, but you can also put divisive energy into a population. If you had been in a situation, if you had been in a incarcerative environment in which the administrative powers that be felt threatened, there might have been a system in place in which you were more pitted against your fellow inmates because they had already perceived a threat and put energy into it, which they can easily do in the most subtle of ways, drive a wedge between everybody, give them less toilet paper for pillows, give them one roll and give this guy spaghetti and give that guy not spaghetti. And it's something that they do very readily in order to quell the potential. So I know I'm going to sound like a fucking weird apologist for the man or whatever, but I'm actually like now I'm looking at that and going like, instead of hearing that as like, those fucking guards, I'm like thinking, those guards probably living in an environment that's like as close as you can get to having an incarcerated group, and then they're in charge of guarding it, which is why they're so bitter. When those guys start getting happy and Abu Ghrabing, it's because there's been attention actually deliberately put down into like making sure that, for instance, an environment gets created where somebody wants to beat you up, like because you're just in the same cell as them, or they're, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, in my little minute situation, it was a police station, and the people that were there were probably going to county, and then a lot of them were going to be in county for a while, then probably go to federal prison, and then you have to come back to a county, then back to a jail. Like, they were going to be in there for a long time. They told me, like, this is as good as it's going to get, and they warned me about what happens at the other stages. Like, here's when you don't take a shit, and here's where you put things that you care about not losing, and here's like, and they all told me like, the thing that you're gonna have to color up with the white power dudes and all that shit, and I was just like, I my stomach was just liquid the entire time, because the good thing was that I was vegetarian. I just become vegetarian. And it was bologna and cheese sandwiches. I gave them all my bologna. They gave me all the cheese. I had a kick at that cheese was bullshit, but it was the best cheese sandwich you ever had in your life.
The reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm trying to carry over. I'm constantly like all this talk about the Stanford prison experiment, what that experiment was, what it meant, the fact that it didn't have to be scientifically accurate, the fact that it's less a cautionary tale about science and how to get data and all this stuff, the fact that what it really means is that you can be in the Stanford prison experiment and there can be no bars around you. You can be in a three-piece suit. You can have a big mustache. You can be the star of your own biopic, and you can be in the Stanford prison experiment. Whenever you are told, which is every minute of every day, by Reddit, by commenters, by everything, you're told by the ghost of your mother that you have a role and you're in an argument. You're a libtard. You're a wingnut. You're a right-wingy, left-wingy. I'm policing. I'm an apologist. I'm a thing, and I'm engaging with another human being, and as I found out, like buying my fucking gun like a maniac, and looking through Sandy Hook conspiracy theorists, it's like I've had a plan this whole podcast to bring this message home that like walk out of here knowing that you're already in a prison. I mean, you can't just walk out of life. You can't walk out of America, especially not now. You might not be let back in. Like, we're in an environment, and the environment is being run. And I'm not saying that means let's go throw a garbage can through a window. That won't do any good. It means that if you remind yourself that you're in an environment, that you're encased in something, you might maintain your empathy. Those guys that knew the system, that were saying, Hollywood, here's the thing, the judge does this and does that. Like, they were wearing a mask. They were saying, like, we're in this system. The system is a system. Like, the real life exists outside of it. Now, while you're in here, don't fuck with that guy's toilet paper. Try the soup instead of the salad. You're going to be fine. There's solidarity. There's empathy possible because everything's been removed from them except that. There's been not an undue amount of, like, divisive energy placed on it. Hopefully we could withstand that too. If you're looking at another human being digitally or whatever, and you have that temptation to go animal because you're filled, as I have been, with that fucking outrage where you're like, I know what I'm about and I know what I'm up against, and I'm going to tell this piece of fucking 15-year-old Canadian shit how politics works on Twitter. Like,
he might have been 14.
I thought I could pick one group that wouldn't... you have a 15-year-old Canadian daughter. Okay, fine. I was like, Venezuelan, whatever won't offend you. Shut the fuck up. See, it happened to me again. It's as easy as somebody telling me I don't know what I'm doing. Fuck off, fuck you.
I think
I own a gun, lady.
Yes.
It's at a gun store, but I own it.
See, Dan, you feel like a prisoner, but you're acting like a guard, and that's the whole point. Like we're all.
I am a guard because I've been given the microphone. Well, I took it with a lifetime of talent. They give them aviator. Is that the title of the show?
Yes, it is.
We've got some good selections. They give them aviator glasses and like everything's a fantasy. Like prison guards don't necessarily always wear aviator sunglasses, but it's like it's a
no,
prop.
but it's also it's an image of authority. It's like when you can't see behind someone's eyes, or when you can't see their eyes.
Empathy.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything about that. The whole thing was designed just to remove humanity from the entire
When they
equation.
interrogate suspects, they take advantage of that thing that Howie Mandel turned into a game show, the prisoner's dilemma. You take a suspect, you want them to rat on each other, you separate them, you make sure they can't see and touch each other, and you say to one, the other one says you did it. Now what will you do? Will you your empathy is put to the test. Like, will you bother to walk as a lamb to the slaughter? Well, this other piece of shit that you don't know that I can tell you about is telling you that you're the one that did it? Or will you do the sensible thing to protect yourself and just tell me that other person is a bad person? And that's the fucking internet. Like it divides 8 billion people into individual cells. We cannot see or touch each other, and we are being told by headlines and clickbait like that we don't understand each other and that we are going to fuck each other over.
But also, in bringing it back to like a prison environment, with the internet, there's no accountability, which is again how Abu Ghraib happened. It's like you put a bunch of people that don't have the proper training in a position of authority without any supervision, and fucked up shit's going to happen.
Against people that have no habeas corpus and no outside contact. Like there's absolutely it's a free for all.
Right.
It's a giant frat party. It's nuts.
You've been in rooms that you probably can't talk about, like The Last Jedi. Where you didn't you?
No, I haven't been in rooms. I was actually on the set of The Last Jedi.
Oh, okay.
But I was also on the set of Rogue One.
Well,
no, the set was cool. The set was
I
really
just
cool.
talked to the set of Rogue One, and they said the set of The Last Jedi is a piece of shit. So either you fucking rat on them, and I don't know how that was.
If you could have pulled that rabbit out of my hat.
There's nothing you can tell us. You can tell us about the emotional experience of being on a Star Wars set.
Well, the cool thing is I went over there when they were prepping for Last Jedi, or Episode 8, or whatever they're calling it. And
I'd rather be a guard. It's so easy. It's so easy to be me.
Sometimes you just have to wait 49 minutes.
I say 3 words. It's great. Sorry, you were.
Okay, Dan. Well, it was nice speaking with you.
You did the funniest thing in the show, and you've said 3 sentences.
It's a living. Yeah.
What kind of food did they get in the Stanford experiment?
Shitty. But you know, Dan had mentioned before, they also did, like, there were 2 cells that revolted and one that acquiesced, and so they gave them like a special meal from outside. Right. I mean, they were constantly like if using things against other prisoners.
But they made that up on the fly because of the actual instant need that they had that the experiment hadn't predicted, which was that the prisoners would
band together
say,
and revolt.
Oh, we're all together, so why don't we just outnumber them and do this or that? And then they were like, okay, now we divide you. Now we give them soup and not you soup.
Yeah, then
we take people out of one cell and put them. You know, if the 3 of you would become friends, we're going to break you up and put you in different groups.
The fact that we wouldn't see that lie happening when we talk about race and gender and everything else that divides us, we talk so fucking rarely about income bracket. For a country that runs on the dollar.
That's creating a middle class by saying that you're the privileged.
You create
prisoners.
a giant underclass of people of all shapes and sizes that are all poor, which is the only thing that matters. And so it's like very obvious the tricks that you play. When you look at prisons, you go like, oh, what do they do when they feel like at any moment, like everybody might go, run! They wouldn't be able to do much. But not that I'm advocating for that, and I don't know what that would look like. I guess all of us using toilet paper for pillows at the same time. Just try it, or don't pay your income tax. I don't know, but the red beams form on my chest. But okay, so Star Wars, you were on the set, and it was interesting. They had lightsabers.
The coolest thing was I got to go in the Millennium Falcon, which is meticulously recreated.
Now, what does that mean? It means
there are two versions of it. There's one that's like an exterior version that they use, like a full-size one, like out in the world or whatever.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, like they shot in Ireland, and at one set they had like an
Isn't
exterior.
that an exterior full-size Millennium Falcon? What do you? What?
Yeah.
But they built it like a building?
Yeah.
Like it's
so
like
you can walk in and out of it and see the cockpit from the outside and all
Fuck
that.
you.
But
why would they even do that? I would fire that line producer. CG that shit. What?
Well, I mean, I don't know
That's
why they did
amazing.
it.
I'm glad they did it.
Yeah, they
That's
did
great.
it for episode 7, and then that was what was still standing, was not the exterior, but the interior. So you walk up basically the ramp of the Millennium Falcon, and then you're in the Millennium Falcon.
Oh my
the whole
God.
thing.
Like how much? The whole kit
thing.
and caboodle?
All the way through like the holding area where they play chess and into the cockpit and all that stuff.
They should just amortize that with doing a Netflix sitcom. They could just pay for that whole thing with like 6 seasons of a workplace comedy. It's called Millennium Nights.
Apparently, it cost a shit ton of money because they went back and, like, when they made the original Millennium Falcon, half the stuff were all old airplane parts and stuff like that, and none of that existed anymore. So they had to go and like 3D print from reference photos all this shit. So you walk in there and it's like, oh my god, I just walked into my fucking childhood.
Wait, to what level of detail? Like to every nook and cranny, like everything. Yep. So like they could shoot anything there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you watch Force Awakens, I mean, there are shots where you walk through the whole thing, and that's there.
God, that's what I'm saying. Like, dude,
and that was
it shouldn't be a sitcom. It should be like an Aaron Sorkin, it's like a West Wing. Like it's like
just nothing but walking and talking in the Falcon.
What's your opinion? You can't say anything about where Star Wars is at. I'll lay my cards on the table. I'm 44. I saw Phantom Menace. I started crying. I got over it.
You started crying. I started laughing. I was like, "Is this real?"
Maybe I was like a hollow. I think I said, you know, I said at the point where they went into the water and the Jaboo planet. Right? I was sitting next to Schraub and I went, oh my god, it's the worst movie ever. And Schraub was like, shh. But he didn't mean we're in a movie theater. He meant like, stop. It might surprise us.
So Rob wanted someone else to be quiet?
Yeah. We were just both there as the same team. We'd been waiting for this moment our entire lives. I started weeping during the 20th Century Fox logo at the beginning of Phantom Menace. I had been waiting for that moment my entire life. That's not an exaggeration. I had been waiting for that moment my entire life.
I couldn't see Phantom Menace because I was in jail, motherfucker.
Hollywood!
You all seem to have a problem understanding simple communication. Now, I see a couple of you are black, a couple of you are white. You all need to understand that you are animals. Now, I'm going to give the white people free lasagna. Because y'all Garfield now. Y'all black people got to ask, do you hate Mondays? Now try to rally them. They've been divided. Stand up again, see if it still works.
If I do, they're going to start chanting Hollywood.
I don't believe you. There's half of them are women. Now hold on now. Hold on. seem to be doing some titty thinking. I think a good half of y'all got titties and vaginas. I wonder if maybe they need to get some spaghetti on Wednesdays. Well, you can dangle your dicks in the pudding on Thursday. I don't think I'd be a very good guard.
You'd be entertaining.
That's all right. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Shut up! No!
Monster House.
Y'all need to start seeing the Monster House way of things. The eyes in the windows. Door open up, the carpet's a tongue. Scooping up you if you're black or you're a woman. Scoop you up. Trick or treat.
You make a bad warden. We found that out.
I make a bad Appalachian.
Oh yeah,
warden,
your Strother Martin could use some work.
Yeah. I mean, I'm bad. I'm bad at everything. But here's the thing. Hey, no, I didn't ask for it. I don't need your bullshit. I'm not a populist autocrat.
You know, Dan, maybe you need to go to prison or jail and come back with a nickname, and then people will just chant it on sight when they see you. What do you think your jail nickname would be?
Chowder!
Chowder!
Chowder? Did you just say that in the thickest Boston accent in the world? Chowder? Oh, from Monster House. It's a character from Monster House. No, you haven't seen it. Okay, all right. Whoa. I just resemble a person that should be called Chowder.
No, that has to be a Monster House reference. Of course it would.
No, the blank stare does not lie. He said Chowder from his fucking heart because I get it.
There's no
For the
way.
same reason I named that character Chowder. I'm like,
there's no way he said one of the three main characters from your movie as.
I've not seen it.
there's an easy
real?
way. No,
That's-
it's
wow.
like he's the sad fat guy in the movie, and you, having not seen the movie, you said the same thing I did. You named a sad fat guy from your heart. I have no ill will against you. Now, if you come in my window tonight, unless I'm seeing wrong, you're dead. It would be a wicked, retarded move to trespass. No offense to the actual wicked, retarded.
Isn't your sister
One
retarded?
of which is my sister.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, she's a cool person from Boston?
No, my sister's institutionalized in Madison. What do you... Yeah.
Yeah, way to bring it down, Jeff.
Pretty fucked up. Drag my sister into it.
No, but that's not what that phrase means. It's more of a term of endearment there.
I agree. That's why I said no offense to the...
Yeah.
Tim, what do we...
Tim, don't listen to him. Fuck, no, Tim, face me for a moment.
Go ahead, do Jeff. Go talk to Hollywood.
What you're going to see is Dan, for the next 5 or so minutes before we finish the show, is just still mad about people chanting Hollywood. So he's gonna try everything he can to sort of salvage some sort of some dignity out of this whole thing, and he's going to bring you down with that ship.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's it. Well, okay, you can go back to Dan now.
Thank you.
Tim, I feel like what you just saw was that when they chanted Hollywood, Jeff was stimulated on a level we didn't realize.
Well,
and it may...
Is that why he's sitting down?
Yes.
That's why this podium is so large.
We could talk about... What's this script that was on the blacklist? Balls Out for the...
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Balls Out was this script that I wrote with another guy named Malcolm Spellman under the pseudonym of the Robotard 8000. So we wrote the script. It was during the writer's strike, the last one, and we just were like, fuck it, let's write what we want to write, not anything for anyone in particular. And we finished it, we brought it to our representatives, and they were like, no fucking way, we're not taking this script out, it's too offensive. And literally, like, nobody would take it out. I had a couple of friends that we were commiserating with, and just said, well, "Fuck it, just throw it up on the internet and see what happens." So
The script itself.
yeah. So I created a website that looks like it was created by a differently abled robot, and had some friends that were screenwriters just give us like a blurb if they liked it, and all of a sudden it just took off. And as of like last week, it's been downloaded almost 200,000 times, which is insane. Yeah, and it's the only script so far that's ever gotten on the blacklist without ever being sent out.
Huh.
You know, people read it afterwards, but it never officially went out for anyone to really buy.
So is it like what's Jerry Lewis's one? The Day the
Oh,
Clowns
the Day the
Cried?
Clowns Cried, yeah. But we did actually the Blacklist podcast. We did a staged reading of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and recorded that. Actually, it's like, oh well, yeah, this is a movie. This does work. So that was kind of fun.
Blacklist is the thing that I'm only familiar with third hand. Like I've never actually gone to anything and seen anything. My studio has optioned a script that was #1 on the Blacklist. I know that. I can repeat that to people, but that's not how it was brought to me.
Now the Blacklist, yeah, again, it's one of those things. It's just a bit of a popularity contest. When it first started out, it was literally this guy Franklin Leonard just asked his friends what were their favorite movie script that they'd read, and he put them all together and made a list out of it. And then now it's become this sort of other entity. But you know, the idea though that we ended up pretty high on the Blacklist without ever like, you know, our whole thing was like, this is a fucking balls out comedy. You got to send it to everybody. You send it to the entire town and like 5% are going to love it, and they wouldn't send it to anybody. So yeah, you know, it's you should read it, Dan.
What
it's
is it?
quite fun.
Do you if you think describing the conceit will just make it sound through in this context?
No, it'll sound stupid. Again, the whole idea was to just like, we just were like, fuck it about every rule of screenwriting while adhering to every rule of screenwriting. So it's basically, it's about a guy who you know, has been leading his life the way society tells him to, which is, you know, if I keep my head down and do good work, I'll get, you know, the white picket fence and the house and the wife and the 2 kids. And he comes to a point where he realizes that like nothing in his life is going his way. Gets struck by lightning. Has a moment where he realizes there's nothing after life. But the reality is, it's actually like the circle of light opens up behind him. He's just too dumb to look around. And he wakes back up and he's just like, fuck it. I'm going to make a list of things. I want that girl, that car, and that job. And
because he got hit by lightning?
Because he realized there's no point to anything. There's no point to waiting and following rules. So he just goes balls out, basically, and just starts doing whatever is necessary to get what he wants, and then realizes, of course, you know,
that he's president of the United States.
That he's president of the United States.
That was awesome. The laugh meter got close to show closer.
I know, but we are.
we're trying to go on a runtime diet. Like, come on, we should really cut these calories, and if they react loudly enough, we should just end the show. Like,
Rap battle. Stanford rap. Guard versus prisoner. Guard versus prisoner.
All right. Well, we make all the guests do a rap. We don't really. You don't know. Yo, Stanford, Stanford, rap. I'm a guard because you gave me a badge. I'm gonna fuck your mama so hard I'm resizing her vag. I got a nightstick, I got sunglasses. Gonna lock you all up and patrol your asses. Gonna tell you to recite your numbers. I'm gonna go through you like I go through Tumblr at night and look for bad reviews of my script. My name is guard number 72. We don't have names like you. I mean, we don't have names, comma, like you. My name is guard number 72. I got up this morning. What did I do? I brushed my teeth. I ate some beef. I went out the door and I hung up a wreath because the date of this rap is December 15th. I went to the mailbox and I pulled out some mail and I pulled out some socks. The socks weren't on my feet where they go, so I went down the street and started to mow a lawn, and then I put on the socks. MC Tim Talbot.
No.
Thank you for coming to Harmontown, everybody. Let's hear it for Tim Talbot.
Shut up, you sons of bitches! You have no power! You're animals!
Let's hear it for Spencer Crittenden, everybody.
We're in Chicago next week.
Oh, yeah, Chicago.
Next week we're in
he'll be
Chicago.
I won't be there.
But Jeff won't be there, but Brandon Johnson will be in Chicago. But then the week after that will be our last show at Meltdown.
Steve is making a
Nope.
Steve is making a face like that's
It's not true. There's 2 more, I think, right?
What?
April 1st, Harmontown, Chicago. Just go on the Googles, you guys.
We don't have it on Google. That's why we have to say it here.
All right, but the thing is, we're nearing at the end of our tenure here at the Meltdown, and we're going to be doing it at the Castle at Starburns, which is even more fun if you haven't been before.
Well, yes, you have to drive to Burbank.
Well, you don't have to come.
Burbank hater.
Let's thank Zach, Chris, and Sarah backstage for doing everything cool. Church for taking all of our photos. Everybody here at Meltdown for being wonderful. All of our lovely friends. Your mayor, Dan Harmon, everybody. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention my name.
You motherfucker. This isn't over! This isn't over, you piece of shit! No! Don't leave me here with these animals! Get back to your cells! Get back to your cells! You were born less than human! You deserve less! All right, I can't stay mad at you. Get back to your cells. Free toilet paper pillows for all of you. Tim Talbot, everybody. Go watch the Stanford Prison Experiment. I think it's very relevant. Spencer.
Yep. April 1st, we're coming to Chicago. April 1st. All right, get out of here.
Hi, it's Dan Harmon. If you're like me, you're a big fan of Harmontown, the podcast, and you wish that you didn't have to wait so long for it to drop after we record it. But here's the thing. Jeff, Spencer, take it.
You do not have to wait.
You can not only hear it right after it happens, you can watch it too in delicious, deluxe, high-definition multicam on your browser or your mobile phone.
We do edit some stuff out sometimes. Like, I'll say something so incredibly racist that we will catch it right before it drops as a podcast.
But you get to watch Dan right before the sedition hearing when he talks shit about Trump again.
Right.
Sometimes we have really famous guests, but we just cut it out of the podcast entirely.
Because it turns out they're pedophiles.
Sometimes Spencer's never wearing a shirt.
Most of the time. We put that in post.
Not to mention all the times you always hear people laughing at something that doesn't sound funny because someone is making a funny face or wearing a funny shirt.
Yeah, for $5 you get to watch all that stuff. You can see the weirdos sitting down, like getting nervous on camera. There's like one camera that's just right up someone's nose, and they're always picking their nose and stuff like that. That's good.
As if that wasn't enough, here's some political incentive. We will match your new subscription to the Harmontown live feed up until April 15th. The day of the big tax march, we'll match it with a donation to the ACLU,
which stands for a clue, which is what you should get.
And I know that's triggering your thought of going, doesn't the ACLU now have $800 million? Because, but here's the thing. ACLU money is like toilet paper money. It never expires.
But if political encouragement weren't enough, some apolitical encouragement is if you sign up, you get access to a year and a half of our back catalog of video episodes, including the tour in Australia and Harmon Country, as well as audio downloads on the night of the record, on just minutes after it airs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how many times have you been listening to Harmontown for free after Wednesday and and thought, I would really want to know what that guy looks like or what she looks like, or I want to see exactly how uncomfortable the audience is when Adam Goldberg is on stage. Now, for $5 a month, you get to see it as well as hear it. You can almost taste the Harmontown. Go to harmontown.com/live for your subscription to watch us as well as hear us. It really, really is a taste treat. Dan gave me little eyebrows.
I was like, holy shit, that guy just hit the bullseye. It really is a taste treat.